Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Hakeem Jeffries, House Democratic Leader. It's been a high honor and a privilege to be here in Denmark, interacting with members of the government, as well as members of the business community, all in connection with the important and continuing and special relationship between the United States and Denmark. Let me be clear to the people of Denmark that the relationship between our two countries is important, has been strong, and must remain that way moving forward. Denmark is not a bad ally to the United States of America. Denmark has been a tremendous ally, particularly over the last 80 years, as we work together to build a rules-based society throughout the world. And it is in fact the case that whenever the United States has called upon the Danish people to join us on the battlefield in defense of our shared values, including in the immediate aftermath of the horrific attack on America on September 11th, that the people of Denmark have unequivocally answered that call. Denmark has been a tremendous ally to the United States of America, and we value this relationship. On this congressional delegation trip, we've been joined by a variety of distinguished members from throughout the country who represent the gorgeous mosaic of the American people who are here today. And I just want to acknowledge their presence from right to left. Greg Landsman from the great state of Ohio, Stacey Plaskett from the U.S. Virgin Islands, Marilyn Strickland from the great state of Washington. We've got Laura Friedman from California, the great state of California. Didn't mean that to be a slight.
Greatest
Madeleine Dean from the Commonwealth, as we refer to it, of Pennsylvania. And let me now yield before we take questions to Gregory Meeks from the great state of New York.
Thank you, Leader Jeffries. Let me thank you for having the vision and the wisdom to make sure that on this trip, we stopped here in the beautiful and distinguished country of Denmark. I want to say thank you first to all of the people of Denmark. As Leader Jeffries said, for your standing by our side at every turn. Never have we ever had to doubt where Denmark was with reference to the United States of America. We are tied together. We know that alliances deserve and need to have certainty. And as members of Congress, we are here to say we are going to give you that certainty. We're going to stand by you as you have stood by us. We've watched what you've done and the success you've had in Ukraine. And we understand that Russia is a threat not only to Ukraine, but to all of NATO. And the United States is still a part of NATO. We will continue to be a part of NATO, which means that Russia is a threat to all of us. And when you face those threats, as we've had in the past, the only way to do it is together. We will stand together with Ukraine. We will stand together with NATO. We will stand together on this issue of tariffs also. We know that tariffs are taxes that raises the cost for the American people, as well as trust for our friends and our allies. And we've heard Denmark's concerns. I want you to know that we've listened and we've heard those concerns. And that's another reason why we're here, to make sure that you know that we're not turning our back. We heard and we have listened, and we are going to make sure that Congress, who has the responsibility for tariffs, stands forward and makes sure that we're not losing the faith and the trust of our friends and allies like the Danes. And so history has shown us that when we do this thing together, like Greenland, what we've done together, since 1951, we've had military bases there. Thank you again to the Danish people, working and making sure that the Arctic is safe. We've heard when we've met with your prime minister, and we're going to meet with the foreign minister tomorrow. We met with the minister of defense, and we met with the minister, not of defense, minister of business. And we've heard collectively how we're going to work together. So I say to the people from Greenland, we intend to come to visit again, to see and to learn, and come at a time that you say is good for us to come, so that we can continue to work together to protect the Arctic, so that we stand against, collectively, Russia and China, because they do not share the same values that we have, and focused on democracy and freedom and justice for all of our people. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. The relationship between Denmark and the United States is not a fleeting one. It's anchored in a shared history. It's anchored in shared values of democracy and freedom and a rules-based society, anchored in our NATO partnership. And of course, it's been anchored in our common understanding that Russia and China present real national security challenges to Europe, to America, to the West, and to the free world, which is why, as members of Congress, as leaders within the Congress, we're committed to making sure we continue this strong relationship moving forward.
Mr. Jeffries, thank you for joining us here for further questions. My first question is that you said that tariffs is a bad idea, and your companion as well. How do you see the possibility of a Congress to bring the tariffs down? Because it seems like you have a president right now who are mostly ruling by decrets, and I mean, then you must be in a difficult situation where you are right now.
The Congress has been given the power pursuant to the Constitution and under law to decide the appropriateness of when tariffs should be utilized. It's fair to say that all of us within the Democratic Party have been very clear at home in America, and as we've communicated with people abroad, that the manner in which the current tariff regime has been imposed, including on allies, is not in the best interests of the people we represent in America, and will undermine core relationships that we have had with people across the world, including here in Denmark. It's going to fall on Congress to reassert our constitutional responsibility if we find ourselves continuing to go down this road with an executive that is acting alone, and in our view, respectfully, not in the best interest of the American people, certainly our allies in North America, or our allies here in Europe.
Okay, and second and last question for me is that there is a big issue you mentioned yourself about Greenland, the possibility of the US, the president says, taking Greenland, stealing Greenland from Denmark or from the Greenland people. How do you look at this big crisis between Denmark and the United States? Because I guess that most people don't like the actions that they've seen from the president right now.
The future of Greenland should be decided by the people of Greenland in partnership with the people of Denmark.
Christian Vigum from Jyllands-Posten for Congressman Jeffries. Do you plan to stand in Trump's way regarding taking over Greenland, and if so, how?
It's not clear to any of us that any president has the ability to unilaterally make a decision to take any independent nation or part of an independent nation by force. And by the way, that's not the American way. And so the future of Greenland should be decided by the people of Greenland. It also is important for us on both sides of the Atlantic, in terms of the United States and Denmark, and this was a topic of discussion today, that there has been an agreement between the United States and Denmark since 1951 that has provided full and complete access to the United States to have a military presence to defend America's national security, as well as the security of our allies in the Arctic region. That agreement is still valid, it's alive, and the leaders here in Denmark have made clear that it remains available to be utilized.
But sorry, one last question. If Trump decides to move on and you want to take over Greenland, can you do anything about it?
It's not my expectation that he will unilaterally and aggressively move on Greenland. And I think it's important to separate his rhetoric from his actions. Thanks. We'll go back to this side and then we'll alternate.
Yeah, staying on Greenland, Denmark has announced new military investments in Greenland, and obviously the United States has a strategic interest there. Now, under the 1951 agreement, do you think it would, present day, make sense to increase U.S. military presence there? Is that something you've discussed with the Danish officials, ministers you've met?
There was no specific discussion of that other than, a full and complete understanding of what the 1951 agreement permits. Any decision about what's in the best interest of our collective security should be made by military and defense professionals in the United States, of course, in partnership with our allies. But it is important to note there are increasing challenges in the Arctic region, challenges that are presented by China and its aspirations, as well as, of course, by Russia, and increased military presence and cooperation is a subject that on the merits should be discussed for the good of everyone.
One more.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just one more question. So the rhetorics used by the U.S. administration and threats against Denmark and people of Greenland, do you see that literally, or do you think people in Denmark and Greenland should rather see it as a sort of a bargaining tool to achieve something else, for example, greater investments in defense?
We're here in Europe, and we are very clear, and will continue to be clear with the American people and those that we're privileged to represent, that the threat that emanates from Europe is Vladimir Putin and Russian aggression. That's what we should be concerned about, and we should all continue to be collectively investing, as America has done, in a bipartisan way, coming out of the Congress with leadership from President Joe Biden, in stopping Russian aggression in Ukraine. That's the challenge that we should be focused on addressing.
Mr. Jeffries, to what extent can you guarantee, as a congressional leader, that Donald Trump, the administration of Donald Trump, will not take over Greenland by force? To what extent can you guarantee that?
It's not something that it's fair to say any of us support. I don't believe that there is real bipartisan support in the Congress to aggressively move on Greenland. You'll have to ask our Republican colleagues, but I haven't seen serious Republican members of Congress weigh in support of the notion that we should somehow invade Greenland.
You also met with the Prime Minister today, I was told. Can you say a little bit about what you talked to her about? What did you say to her about the relationship between the US, Greenland, and Denmark?
It was a very positive meeting with the Prime Minister, who we have great respect for, her leadership, her intellect, and her strength. It was a values-based discussion. There was not a lot of time that was spent on Greenland. We spent the majority of time talking about our shared interest in economic prosperity, our shared interest in stopping Russian aggression in Ukraine, and our shared interest in lifting up the values of democracy and freedom and truth, and pushing back against those who have different values or aspirations, including, but not limited to, China.
Some say,
Hold on. Yeah. Okay, yeah, sir.
yeah,
Wait,
some say Trump.
I'm sorry. I was going to go ahead. Yeah, okay. Sorry.
My name is Ars. I'm from Argentina. Thank you so much for taking questions. How a record, there seems to be many polls that suggest that Democratic voters are very frustrated with their Democratic politicians. How do you see that the Democrats have an issue with their brand?
Yeah, we're dealing with a very, you from America? We're dealing with constituents who are understandably concerned throughout America at the unprecedented events that we've seen unfold, given the change in the executive branch over the last 95 days. And we are in what we believe is a more is more environment, which is all of us within American democracy, in the Congress and in the courts in particular, are going to have to stand up in defense of American values and our way of life. And we'll continue to do that as we have done since January 20th of this year.
Could I contribute to that?
Yeah.
If I could just add on to that. I've seen a shift in my own district. I'm Madeline Dean. I represent suburban Philadelphia. I had a town hall last week, Thursday of last week, standing room only, full capacity, in all humility. That doesn't happen for me usually. I had more than 600 people attend. I had 2 telephone town halls, 9,000 on one, 4,500 on another. And there's been a shift. This is what I wanted to report to you. The old chestnut is, and it's still haunting us, Democrats are bad at messaging and Democrats have a problem with our brand. The shift in my district is entirely away from that narrative. It is, oh my goodness, the chaos, the confusion, the lack of certainty and clarity for businesses, for families, for federal workers, for veterans. The shift is to that. And it is pointed directly at the administration, even some who voted for this president and who want him to succeed like we all do. But it is less about the failed Democratic brand, and it is much more about the existential threat that this administration is coming up with, the harm to relationships like ours with Denmark. That's why I'm so proud to be on this trip, why Leader Jeffries put it together to reassure the people of Denmark, we are your friend and ally before this administration returned to power and after this administration leaves.
Mr. Jeffries, just
Hold on, I think we is.
Thank you, sir. I have a question on the war in Ukraine. And Trump said in a new interview that Crimea will stay Russian. Where do you stand on that? And also, how do you see that peace can come to Ukraine?
I'm going to yield to Greg Meeks as well on this, but we believe that this is a Churchill or Chamberlain moment. You cannot appease an aggressor like Vladimir Putin, as the world found out in the 1930s. So it's a Churchill or Chamberlain moment, and you have to confront the aggressor and stand on the side of democracy, freedom, truth, the rules-based society that we've all built together with great leadership from America through NATO and great partnership with allies like Denmark. And so the stakes are very high in terms of the outcome of the war in Ukraine. And I don't believe that we should be dictating terms to the people of Ukraine that would result in a territorial victory and a values victory for Vladimir Putin and Russia. Right?
Yeah, let me just say real quickly, I'm the former chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. And we led a delegation, the first delegation, into Ukraine and Poland after the Russian invasion, the last delegation to go in before the Russian invasion. And to this picture of the greatness and the determination of the Ukrainian people, when we were there each time, they, under great duress, stated that under no circumstances would they allow Vladimir Putin to take them over. That they said to us, just give us what we need. We will fight. You won't have to send anybody over here to fight for us. Give us what we need. Russia was this big military, etc. We're now close to year 3. As long as we give them what they need, and I again thank the people of Denmark. When they needed F-16s, we worked together to make sure they got F-16s. When you look at what Denmark has done with its budget, its commitment to Ukraine, and when you look at what the European countries have done with Ukraine, and what the United States has, and when you talk to the Congress, I believe the United States will ultimately stand up and make sure that it's the Ukrainian people and its president, Zelensky, that will determine the terms of a peace agreement, not Vladimir Putin.
Last question.
Yes, please, Mr. Jeffries. I have understood from your talks today that more than 70 decrees from the president right now is tried at court. How do you look at this way in order to make some of these decrees be turned back by the courts, or do you think that's a good way to use the court system like that in a democracy? Yeah, in America, in an American democracy, we don't have a parliamentary system. We have a constitutional democracy with separate and co-equal branches of government. We're here today as leaders in the Congress who are part of a co-equal branch of government, the Article 1 legislative branch. Congress has authority in the area of tariffs. Congress has authority in the area of war and peace. Congress, of course, also has explicit authority in the area of taxation and revenues as it relates to spending. And so that's our system. And I think you'll see Congress continue to assert itself as a co-equal branch of government. It's important to do, not based on partisan values, based on the integrity of Congress as an institution to be the voice of the American people and to work with our allies across the world, including Denmark. The courts also, Article 3, separate and co-equal branch of government, and the lawsuits speak for themselves. I think we're approaching at this point more than 200 lawsuits that have been filed challenging executive orders and administrative actions
undertaken by the current administration. And in at least 85 different instances, courts have halted those executive orders and administrative actions because at the end of the day, America is a nation that is based on the rule of law. Thank you.